Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Well everybody, as you can see from the Splashtacular World logo, today we're gonna take y'all back to the movie that started the Disney Renaissance, The Little Mermaid. While Aladdin is my all-time favorite animated Disney film from my childhood, you could say that The Little Mermaid is a film that I feel connected with. If you don't understand what I mean, I suggest you watch my computer AI's video from a couple months ago. Anyway, over the years, ever since it was released in 1989, The Little Mermaid has gained a strong popular following. Not only did it gain a direct-to-video sequel in 2000 and a prequel in 2008, but it also gained an animated TV show, a Broadway musical, a ride at the Disney parks, and several appearances throughout the Kingdom Hearts game series. Also, for several years now, I've been absolutely excited when I heard that The Little Mermaid would get a live-action adaptation, which of course happens to be the subject of today's episode. However, I won't be doing this episode alone, because I have a very special guest joining me. And believe me when I say that she has really good criticism and a lot of potential. So, I'd like you all to help me in welcoming, all the way from Pennsylvania, the hostess of Joy Unicycle and the first female collaborator I've ever had since my sister, the beautiful Bonnie Joy O'Connor.
Hey Joshua, how's it going?
It's going really great, Bonnie. How about you?
Well, it's been going pretty good so far. Did you get a chance to see the Little Mermaid remake?
I sure did, and I'm really happy to have you blog it with me today.
Boy oh boy, what a remake, and there's definitely a lot to talk about.
You got that right. So, now that we got our introductions out of the way, let's get started. Released on May 26, 2023, the movie is The Little Mermaid. Now, on for the plot of the movie. Ariel, the youngest daughter of King Triton, is a beautiful and spirited young mermaid with a thirst for adventure, and she longs to find out more about the world above the sea. While visiting the surface for her first time, she falls for the dashing Prince Eric. While mermaids are forbidden to interact with humans, Ariel must follow her heart. She makes a deal with the evil sea witch Ursula, who gives her a chance to experience life on land, but ultimately places her life and her father's crown in jeopardy. So, what do we think about it? Well, as I said earlier, I was really excited after the film was announced, but then a year later, after the cast was revealed, well, I didn't jump to conclusions unlike most folks did, but I was pretty curious. But then, as the months passed and more info were released, I was feeling more and more hyped than ever. And after seeing it twice in theaters, despite a couple flaws, I really loved it. What about you, Bonnie?
Personally, I don't mind a lot of these changes in these remakes. In fact, I mostly encourage it because if you've got good storytelling and good actors, you could twist the story into so many different directions. On Kindle, I've been reading different novels and different novel spin-offs of The Little Mermaid and the different directions it goes. Whether it has, well, I'll just say Ariel, even though they're clearly named differently. Whether it has Ariel falling in love with the sea witch's son, who turned human on land, or Ariel's father cursing her voice just so that he can use it to sink sailors to their doom, or where Ariel is the bad guy and the sea witch is the good guy, etc., etc. There are so many different versions of this story that I do not mind some of the changes that are made in this one, whether it be the casting or having the prince come from another land only to be adopted by the queen. and so on and so forth, or even just the fact that this is not located in Denmark. I don't mind some of these changes because these writings are pretty good. And I like some of the changes they make. Some of the changes that they make I don't think are good ones, but a lot of the times some of the choices don't affect it. So I don't mind.
So, with all that said, let's head over to Mustang Notes. The film began development in May 2016 with Jane Goldman and David Maggi serving as screenwriter, along with John DeLuca and Mark Platt as producers, and Rob Marshall as the director. For those who don't know, I've previously mentioned Rob in my blogs of 1997 Cinderella, 1999's Annie, the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie, 2014's Into the Woods, and of course, Mary Poppins Returns.
Personally, when I heard that Rob Marshall was going to be the director, I instantly looked up his filmography, and as soon as I saw that he had done Pirates 4, the least popular pirates with the awesome mermaids, I was like, it's gotta be. I know he's gonna do the mermaid effect perfectly. And then I saw he did Chicago, and then Mary Poppins Returns, Into the Woods. And I'm like, okay, this movie's going to be in good hands. And I was right.
Filming was originally scheduled to begin in London between late March and early April of 2020. However, it was sadly delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What a surprise, huh, Bonnie?
Not entirely shocked that the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the production, or delayed it, I mean. And, well, it took as long as it did. But in some ways, I think that is kind of a blessing in disguise because you could see a lot of the effort that goes into this movie. So I think that remakes need to take longer to make sometimes, just so that they can have the writing effort, the acting effort, and so on and so forth. And that's what this movie shows for me.
Thankfully, principal photography began at Pinewood Studios in Ivor, England on January 30th, 2021, and additional filming took place during the summer in Sardinia, Italy, my dad's home island, for a total of roughly 3 months until July 11th, 2021. The visual effects for the film were provided by Industrial Light and Magic, Weta FX, Moving Picture Company, and Framestore.
Props to the people who worked on the special effects for The Little Mermaid.
Now, in my opinion, the underwater visuals are absolutely breathtaking and amazing. And, as I suspected about 5 years ago, it almost looked as beautiful as the visuals from the 2018 DC movie Aquaman, or heck, even James Cameron's Avatar 2. And I still stand by that if I could ever go underwater the way merfolk do, I would definitely have my legs be transformed into a seahorse tail because, well, Mustang prints and all. Plus, I really love how the film depicts several locations from the 1989 animated original, like the undersea palace where King Triton and his 7 daughters meet up for the Coral Moon, the shipwreck scene where Ariel and Flounder find a fork, or dinglehopper as they call it, and outsmart a shark named Glut. However, instead of getting his head stuck in an anchor ring, Ariel uses her reflection to get him stuck in a mirror, which feels kind of reminiscent to a scene from Jurassic Park. Plus, I think Ariel's grotto in this movie is equally as breathtaking as in the original. However, in this version, instead of the entryway being hidden behind a rock, it's hidden by a curtain of seaweed. As for Ursula's lair, well, it's really, really spooky. Not only because it's inside the skeleton of a whale, but the entrance has one-eyed plants and bones of dead mer people all over the place. Plus, I find it to be very, very hazardous due to it having underwater volcanoes.
I actually did hear that in the original storyboards for the animated movie, that was what Ursula's lair was originally going to be like. This gigantic monstrosity of a skeleton with a mouth wider open than it was in the original animated movie. But for the final cut, they went with what they went with. I'm actually glad that the remake borrowed from the storyboards and made that come to life. And I also have to point this out. There are elements from there that borrow from the Hans Christian Andersen book that made me so happy. One of them being the polypi that grab at Ariel, though in this case they're one-eyed polypi, I guess, and they are not the souls that Ursula made a bargain with. We'll get to that part later, but yeah, the fact that it's not just inside the skeleton but under as well, further down, it's pretty scary and it gives a great location.
As for Eric's kingdom, well, I like the fact that it was filmed on my father's home island of Sardinia, Italy, where most of my countless Italian relatives still live today. Anyway, the majority of the movie was filmed in and around Santa Teresa Golera, which is located on the northern coast, and it's not that far from my relative's hometown of Artacana. To me, while I have kind of been to this place while taking a boat to Corsica back in 2010 and 2019, I think this is a really beautiful place. Also, there are other Sardinian places like Castelsardo, which was the base for the scenes that showed Eric's majestic castle in the distance, thanks to its colonial size, Reina Maggiore Beach, where Ariel saved Eric from the water and sang her reprise of Part of Your World, Reina di Mato, which served as the backdrop for Ariel and Eric's carriage ride scenes, and Cala Moresca, which is where the fisherman's village and the scenes showing the surroundings of the castle pier were all shot. However, I must mention that my dad told me that there were no palm trees in Sardinia, so I guess you could say the palm trees in the movie were props, I guess. What do you think, Bonnie?
Personally, I think they made a great choice on where to film this movie because if you had to ask me what's another place beside New Zealand to film a fantasy movie, I would pick Sardinia, sorry, Sardinia. Um, but yeah, I would pick Sardinia. I The way that the ocean and the land connect just looks magical. Looks like something out of a fantasy book. And they treat it like this with their sets, the costumes, and, well, just the natural location of it.
Also, I think the costumes in this movie are really inspirational, and I'd like to thank costume designer Colleen Atwood for supporting my job at Target, and I mean the whole company, not just the store at the Irvine Spectrum. Another thing that I liked was the part where the original Ariel actress, Jodie Benson, whom I've had a video chat with back in November 2020 via GalaxyCon, made a cameo. And believe me, when that scene happened, I screamed in excitement.
10,000 points in this movie's favor for bringing back Jodie Benson. I kind of had a similar reaction, though I didn't scream when I was in the movie theater. Instead, what I did was I was in the movie theater with my friend and I nudged her and I'm like, that's Jodie Benson! That's Jodie Benson! You know, the original Ariel! It was just a cool moment. And on top of that, her acting skills are still there. And it's just great. I mean, I love the moment where she gives the dingle hopper to Ariel, but I also love the face that she makes when um, Ariel's combing with it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you haven't seen Ariel do that before? But it's so cool to see. to see her there. If if Beauty and the Beast had a cameo from Paige O'Hara, or or Aladdin have a cameo from, well, pretty much any of the actors in there, I mean, the movie would have been even more amazing.
Also, believe it or not, the fisherman who helped Ariel after her transformation into a human has the same name as mine, Joshua. Now, let's talk a little bit about the songs, which were all put together by the legendary Alan Menken and the great Lin-Manuel Miranda. Let's start with the Oscar-winning champion, Under the Sea. In my eyes, this version is equally as catchy as Samuel E. Wright's version. May he rest in peace. And no matter what version I listen to, I can't help but sing along to it. My favorite parts of the song is when Ariel swims with a pod of dolphins and when she rides on the back of a sea turtle. Plus, the bits where Ariel sings with Sebastian not only made me smile, but it also brought back memories from Kingdom Hearts 2.
I seriously love how they did Under the Sea. Yeah, the animals are not talking or singing along, but it gives you a feel of what it's like to be under the sea as a mermaid and exploring all of marine life. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and where Rob Marshall shows his choreography talent with the camera, and Ariel riding on the turtle, I hanging out with the jellyfish, though that does bring the question, are mermaids immune to jellyfish stings? Because she's clearly hanging on to one and landing in a pile of jellyfish. Are mermaids immune? But I digress. But otherwise, it's just amazing, the sea life, and it feels magical in a kind of realistic way.
Also, fun fact, director Rob Marshall mentioned that the choreography for the song was inspired by some of the animated segments from Fantasia, and to me, I kind of see where he's coming from due to the choreography kind of making me think of the Nutcracker Suite choreography and a little bit of the Rite of Spring. Next, we come to the romantic song, Kiss the Girl, where Sebastian, Scuttle, and Flounder take it upon themselves to get Ariel and Eric to kiss while they're on a boat ride in a beautiful lagoon. To me, this song is equally as beautiful and peaceful compared to the original version. However, what makes it a little different is not only because of a new verse, but that the trio doesn't make it seem like Eric is forcing himself onto Ariel.
Personally, I don't mind the lyric changes for Kiss the Girl. I actually think they're quite good. However, what I disagree with is the reasoning. Because apparently, um, the creators thought that the lyrics implied Eric forcing himself on Ariel. Looking back at the animated movie, he was never forcing himself on Ariel. If anything, Ariel was kind of forcing herself on him. And she was doing it because, well, she liked him for one, and also she had a time clock on her and she knew about it. Now, in this one, she doesn't remember the time clock, but, well, she likes him and he likes her. So I don't agree with the reasoning for the lyric change, but I don't mind the lyric change. However, I do think that Kiss the Girl overall, the way it's done is just okay. Again, comparing to the original and just how lively it was with all the forces of nature and all the animals singing along, and though you do kind of wonder how Eric did not take notice of it. Maybe that's why they decided to go with a Flounder, Scuttle, and Sebastian singing rather than um, all the other fish and all the birds and the amphibians, reptiles, etc. But I don't know, something about it just feels less as lively and less romantic. Though I we have the chemistry between Ariel and Eric in this one to make up for um, to make up for the lack of a liveliness in the song and make the chemistry feel real. So I can forgive it on that part. I especially love this one moment where Ariel indicates what her name is, rather than Sebastian just telling it for her.
Special thanks to the Aries constellation. Still, like in the original, the thing that really ruins the moment is Flotsam and Jetsam. And now, let's move on to the three new songs, starting with Wild Uncharted Waters, performed by Eric. To me, I think it's great that Eric finally has a song of his own when he didn't have one in the original, and I kind of find it to be pretty reminiscent to her voice from the Broadway show. Also, according to composer Alan Menken, the song was created for this moment of waves and all the wildness of what's out there in the ocean, which is what Ariel represents to Eric. Our second new song is For the First Time, which is sung by Ariel in her mind while being taken to Eric's castle, followed by a bath and getting her own outfit. What I like about this song is that it represents Ariel's experiences the moment she first steps on land after her bargain with Ursula. Plus, it kind of makes me think of Beyond My Wildest Dreams. Also, according to director Rob Marshall, the song was created to almost work as a montage so they could take Ariel through the experience of coming onto land, what it's like to put on shoes and have legs. While it is all Ariel had always dreamed of, it is also something daunting and new for her. The third and final new song in the movie is Scuttlebutt, which is, of course, performed by Scuttle and Sebastian on the morning of Ariel's third and final day as a human. During this song, Scuttle excitedly tells Ariel that she heard the rumors that the prince has decided to marry whom she thinks is Ariel, but it's actually Ursula in the form of Vanessa. Now, I must make something perfectly clear. I understand that a lot of you do not like this song due to it feeling over the top, obnoxious, and fast paced. But that's basically the whole point. Scuttle is not supposed to be a good singer due to her off-key pitch.
And Joshua, I gotta ask you this. What did you think of the scuttlebutt?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Bonnie. In my opinion, not only is it similar to the Positivity song from the Broadway show, but I find it to be really hilarious. And it really shows Awkwafina and Daveed Diggs' rapping skills. Plus, like with Hamilton and Vivo, this song is good old Lin-Manuel Miranda styled rapping. So, how can you not go wrong with it?
I remember when I watched it in theaters, I'm like, okay, we're giving Scuttle a song now. And I don't know why people, I mean, I get why some people are saying it's the worst Disney song yet, but come on. So far, nothing has beat Fa La 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 Falling in Love as the worst song. But I'd say it's unnecessary, but at the same time, I kind of enjoy seeing Awkwafina and Daveed Diggs in their own element. I mean, Awkwafina was given room to improvise most of the time, and I don't remember if this was something she improvised on or if Lin-Manuel Miranda legit wrote this for her, or a culmination of both, but I think it's funny. I think it's funny more than anything. And I especially love Ariel's reaction throughout the entire thing, anywhere from just go away, let me sleep, to well, he's gonna propose, and then finally at the end just throwing the blanket on both Scuttle and Sebastian.
And now, let's move on to the film's cast. Our main character, Princess Ariel, is played by Halle Bailey, whom 5 years ago sang the Warrior song with her sister Chloe in A Wrinkle in Time, and she'll be in the upcoming The Color Purple movie this December. Ariel is the youngest mermaid princess who's fascinated with the human world and she wants to know more about them. So much so that she actually wants to explore the above world, even after encountering Prince Eric on his birthday voyage. To me, like her animated counterpart, Ariel is a gorgeous mermaid, and I really like her natural red hair. I find it interesting that her top is made out of purple scales, and I think her tail is absolutely colorful. However, Ariel in this version is a lot more loyal to her father's rules against going up to the surface than the one in the original. But she still maintains her curiosity. Also to note, the scene where she first goes to the surface kind of makes me think of a plot point from the original fairy tale where it states that a mermaid princess can only visit the surface when they come of age. Plus, like I said about 5 years ago, I think Ariel is equally as beautiful a human as she is as a mermaid. And I'm glad that me and my pals got to see her at Disneyland a few weeks ago. Also, I thought Ariel was very brave when she defeated her Aunt Ursula by steering a shipwreck right into her.
Personally, my thoughts on Halle Bailey, I think she was good. The biggest concern I had when it came to the remake was, who were they going to get for the title role? And please, not somebody that I can recognize instantly. Because as much as I do like Emma Watson as Belle in the remake for Beauty and the Beast, all I see is Hermione playing Hermione. But since Halle is an upcoming new star, I think she's really good for the role. Originally, they were going to get people like, they were considering people like Lindsay Lohan and Zendaya. As much as I like Lindsay Lohan, two problems with that. First one, you cannot make her look like a 16-year-old. The second problem, she's a good singer, but she's not really a soprano kind of voice, a silvery soprano, and that's what Ariel is supposed to be like. Or that's what Ariel's supposed to sound like. And I don't know how if Zendaya can sing or not.
Actually, Bonnie, Zendaya did sing in such films like Smallfoot and The Greatest Showman.
But anytime I see Zendaya, all I see is MJ from the Spider-Man movies. With Halle Bailey, I've never seen any of her movies. I've never seen any of her shows. But even considering that, as far as she's pretty much a good rising star, and her singing voice is impeccable. Like that is something that cannot be beat. And I actually remember I when I heard about her casting, looking up on YouTube to see if she sang anything at all, just so I could hear what she sounded like. And sure enough, I was blown away by how well she could sing Unforgettable. And then when the trailer came out with her singing a little bit of Part of Your World, I was moved to tears. She was just impeccable in that moment. For her acting, it's a mixed bag, but for the most part, she really she she pretty much carries the part of Ariel beautifully.
As for my thoughts on Halle's performance, well, as I said earlier, I was curious when she was announced to have been cast on July 3rd, 2019, and I didn't jump to conclusions unlike most folks did. But anyway, I thought Halle pulled it off beautifully with flying colors, and I think she's quite an acrobat the way she swims. Plus, I was really impressed with her singing, which to me is absolutely amazing, especially when she sings Part of Your World.
Oh my gosh. Just the way Halle sings is amazing. And I mentioned this before and I'll say it again. When I heard Halle singing it in the trailer, it legit brought a tear to my eye because you could just feel the passion in her tone, and you could feel her desire, her longing to explore more, to be free to explore this world above that she's never seen, never been allowed to see, and you identify with it as well as feel that passion. And on top of that, it's sung in a kind of different way, but in a way that still works with the original.
Also, I think the third time she sings it, when she's heartbroken that Eric is engaged to another girl, is really, really emotional and tear jerking. And I feel like it fits the theme of the tragic original fairy tale.
Agreed, Joshua. And I could even add this in. I mean, most people may not remember this, but I remember a movie called Hans Christian Andersen back in 1952, a Samuel Goldwyn movie, and starring Danny Kaye as the titular character. And many people in Denmark were furious that a Jewish man was playing I mean, the most their most beloved author. I mean, even though nothing about this movie was accurate to the real Hans Christian Andersen, he turned in a beloved and wonderful performance. So, you know something? If a Jewish man um, can play the Danish author, and Ariel, who was supposedly going to be blonde, I think even the Hans Christian Andersen version was hoping for blonde hair instead of red hair, then I think anybody can play the role of Ariel. So pretty much in this case, there's no win for any of the people who think that it has to be one way. The important thing always was if she could act and sing the role, then she can play it. And Halle Bailey won that role fair and square.
Next, we come to Prince Eric, played by Jonah Hauer-King, whom I remember from A Dog's Way Home. Eric is an adventurous and free spirited human prince whom Ariel falls head over fins in love with after saving him from drowning. In my eyes, Jonah almost looks exactly like the animated Eric, and I think he makes a great Disney prince actor. Also, he described his character as restless and inquisitive about where he is in the world, and like Ariel, he's quite isolated and sensitive.
I like Prince Eric okay in the original, but all I saw was a good looking guy. That was it. And the only interest that he has, playing his flute or pipe, whatever it is, and also that he loves Max and looking for the mystery girl. But this Prince Eric, he loves to travel, he loves to explore, he loves collecting things the same way Ariel loves collecting things. It's like they are paralleled, and in their own way, it is just great chemistry that they have. And this is something I love even better than the original. I'm not saying the original is better overall, but they're better in the chemistry and just how they work off of each other. And even behind the scenes, you could tell that Halle and Jonah were collaborating together, working together, having fun together, and legitimately were liking each other. Maybe just as friends, but if you told me, if hypothetically you told me that Halle and Jonah were dating, I'd believe it, because just the way they hang out together in the movies, in the movie, and the way they interact off one another is just priceless and precious.
Also, I agree with Ariel that Eric is a very compassionate person, and I thought the scene where Ariel and Eric spend time together while looking over his collection was a really sweet moment. And it almost made me think of the library scene from Beauty and the Beast. Also, I like that Eric gave Ariel a jade mermaid statue. Also to note, I think Eric's dog Max is very sweet and cute, and I like that he's portrayed by a trained dog, which to me kind of makes up for Buck in the 2020 Call of the Wild movie, whom was portrayed by a CGI dog. Next we come to Flounder, voiced by Jacob Tremblay. Now, as a kid, Flounder was one of my favorite characters in the Little Mermaid franchise, and I like the fact that he's Ariel's closest friend who accompanies her while collecting human objects from shipwrecks, and he comforts her whenever she feels sad. Plus, I think Jacob Tremblay's voice acting is absolutely excellent and very reminiscent to his performance as Luca. However, I kind of have two nitpicks. Firstly, he doesn't really do too much compared to his animated counterpart. And secondly, I feel like the animators were trying a bit too hard to make him look like a real Sergeant Major fish. I mean, he should look like this.
I'm afraid that I'm not a fan of how Flounder is designed. I'm sorry. I The main complaint I have, aside from no facial expressions, is um just how dull and muted the colors are. I mean, there are fish in the sea with very bright colors. Why couldn't you try that? I mean, I get that you're trying to go for realism, but there are fish in the sea that have very bright colors that exceed beauty. Why couldn't you have flounder have bright yellow colors or while keeping the stripes? But for all the things I've said about flounder's design, Jacob Tremblay is a phenomenal voice actor, and honestly, I for the lack of facial expressions, you get some really good voice acting and you get what his emotions are. So kudos to that young man for everything that he dedicated in it. And honestly, can't wait to see where your career goes further in this.
Now we move on to Sebastian, voiced by David Diggs, whom was not only in Wonder with Jacob Tremblay, but he was also in Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. In this film, Sebastian is portrayed not just as Ariel's guardian, but he's also King Triton's major domo, which is kind of like what the little seahorse Harold was in the original animated franchise. Also, I think Sebastian's design looks pretty good and very lively, and I think his eyes and movements give him a lot of expression. Also, like his animated counterpart, this version of Sebastian gets into a few comical moments.
I think David Diggs is okay as Sebastian. Sometimes I still think of the late Samuel E. Wright and his Jamaican accent as the crab. And honestly, he was iconic as the character, so nobody could replace him. And in a way, I don't think David was even trying to replace him or even sound like him. But he gave a different kind of performance. Um, so instead of Sebastian being the court composer, he's kind of well, he's kind of just a Ariel's guardian. I don't know if it indicates what he was before then or just he's the king's servant. But either way, it establishes him as Ariel's guardian. And David Diggs does a really good job voicing him and giving his own spin on the character. And I do like that there is a little bit of rapping that he does, both in Scuttlebutt and in Under the Sea. He's clearly in his element doing it. And personally, I have nothing against the design because how can you really make Sebastian look real? And at least they tried, and on top of that, he actually does have facial expressions. And it works in a way. If I had to name something that I didn't like from both movies, I would have to say that it's this particular line where Sebastian says, "It's like I always say, children got to be free to lead their own lives." And earlier in the movie, where he said, teenagers, you give them an inch, they swim all over you. They think they know everything. And in the remake, where Sebastian's just nothing but complaining about Ariel not being in the right place. Just the statement never made sense in the original movie for me, and neither did it make sense in the remake for me. I mean, mainly because it just quickly patches things up too fast. When did Sebastian ever believe that? When did he ever believe that children have got to be free to lead their own lives? If both movies ever indicated it, then it would have helped. Or if he eventually learned it, and it indicates that, that'd be fine. But otherwise, I always felt like that line was too rushed, and I didn't like that the remake kept that line.
And now we come to Scuttle, voiced by Awkwafina. Now, I must let everybody know that she's the third Disney animal whom was changed to a female. The previous ones being Kaa in 2016's The Jungle Book and Jock from 2019's Lady and the Tramp. And to me, I think Scuttle as a northern gannet, which is the type of bird that can dive underwater and fly above the water, is pretty interesting. Plus, I think Awkwafina's voice performance is really hilarious, but she can never top Buddy Hackett. Also, not only does Scuttle help Ariel identify several human objects and describe what humans use them for, but I also like that she, along with Sebastian and Flounder, work together to help Ariel get her kiss.
I don't have much thoughts for Aquafina. She's okay. But I love that they turned Scuttle into a diving bird, and that actually makes a little more sense than a seagull. I mean, Ariel meeting a seagull, I I've had read along books that explain how she meets Scuttle, so that part's okay. And I guess you could ask how she befriends a diving bird who eats fish while she's hanging out with a flounder. I don't know. But at the same time, it's actually pretty cool, and it actually does give a little bit of an education for kids, that there are birds that can dive underwater and swim underneath just as well as they can fly. It's pretty cool, actually.
Next, we have Ariel's father, King Triton, the ruler and commander of all the oceans, played by Javier Bardem, whom was in the fifth Pirates of the Caribbean movie and Lyle Lyle Crocodile. Like in the original animated film, King Triton is a strict and overprotective father who is prejudiced against humans.
Hey, who are you calling human?
Also, like in the Broadway show and in the prequel, Ariel's Beginning, the reason why the Sea King forbids his daughters or his subjects from going to the above world is because a human killed his wife, Queen Athena. Plus, he even hates them for their shipwrecks unintentionally wrecking the reefs. Plus, I find it pretty interesting that King Triton wears body armor in the remake rather than completely showing off his bare chest. Also to note, while he doesn't top Kenneth Mars, I think Javier Bardem does a pretty decent job. Plus, he describes his character as a little bit less grumpy than the original because they were intending to bring more conflict to his character, like his fear and insecurity as a father and being scared letting his youngest daughter leave home ends up translating into being angry or too controlling, which to me kind of makes me think of how my parents treat me at times, especially nowadays.
I think Javier Bardem as King Triton was ideal casting. He really, I mean, his presence screams royal and regal, and you will follow my command. The only problem I have is, well, in a way, his monotone voice both works and doesn't. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm going to try. So basically, he's monotoned in a lot of the right ways when he's telling Sebastian, you can go find her. But when he's talking with Ariel, even casually, he's still monotoned. It's like there's a disconnect between their relationship. I don't buy that their father and daughter, or even had a relationship as father and daughter, unfortunately. And it's not because of physical differences whatsoever. It is because of, well, the way they emotionally interact with each other, and the lack of chemistry between each other. But they both are phenomenal actors in their own way. And as much as I loved the connection between Ariel and Eric, I wish I could have seen a connection between um, King Triton and Ariel as well, because you've got to kind of give that sense that he cares, but but she's constantly disobedient. And the animated movie also was a little flawed on it, but not as much. And the Broadway version actually did a great job showing the father and daughter relationship a little more. This one didn't do as good, unfortunately, in my opinion. However, I am glad that it does have a moment where um, Ariel and King Triton do reconcile, because that was another thing I didn't like from the original, where they barely reconcile, or you barely see them reconcile. It is in a deleted scene where she reconciles with him, and it's a gorgeous scene, but I really felt bad that they could not reconcile in here. But in the remake, they do reconcile for a brief moment before she realizes, Eric, how is he?
Next on our list is his sister and the movie's main villain, Ursula, played by Melissa McCarthy, whom was in films like The Kid, Spy, and the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot. Now, Ursula is regarded by fans as one of the greatest animated villains to come out of the Disney Renaissance, next to villains like Jafar, Scar, or even Frollo. And she was also my second childhood nightmare, first being Maleficent. And in my opinion, I think Melissa McCarthy kills it as Ursula.
And what are my thoughts on Melissa McCarthy as Ursula? I think she's a worthy contender. Definitely before this, I was very skeptical about how she would be as Ursula. And oh my gosh, like, you cannot tell me that the lady from Ghostbusters will ever be the frightening Ursula. But to my great astonishment, of course she was. She was just as good. Okay, I'll stop with this. Okay, so yeah, Melissa McCarthy surprised me with how good she could be as Ursula. She had her own flair. She had her own. She didn't try to imitate the late Pat Carroll whatsoever, and she brought her own style to it. She even it even seems like that she improvised a little bit as a character, and she was the best part of the movie aside from Hallie. She was absolutely the best part. She was funny in moments, she was scary in moments, and well, she just had a presence to the way she delivered her lines with such enthusiasm, and she was completely having a ball with this role. It makes me sorry that I ever said this lady from Ghostbusters cannot be Ursula.
And I think her cover of Poor Unfortunate Souls, which used to frighten me when I was little, is very show-stopping and spectacular.
And this was another thing that puts this movie above The Lion King. they kept this song. I I get why they had to take out a verse because they were afraid of it offending women. Though, let's be honest, when was Ursula about being sensitive? But at the same time, they found ways around it a to make the story still work. Heck, one of the things that they change in there is instead of telling Ariel to sign the contract, um, creating that huge internet-wide complaint. Why doesn't Ariel write her message to Eric if she could write her name? Instead, in here, they have her sign in blood by picking off a scale of off of her tail, and it actually works for two reasons. One is because now you don't have the complaint of why doesn't she write to Eric. The other is also, well, one person actually pointed this out, and it's actually a good point. Kind of references the original Hans Christian Andersen, where blood had to be added to the potion in order to make it effective. And the third reason also is because often making deals with the devil was signed in blood, and in a way she's kind of making a deal with the devil, so it works beautifully. And for the song in general, I didn't know Melissa McCarthy could sing, and apparently neither did she, so this is honestly a really good performance. I do wish, however, that they kept Melissa McCarthy say, "You have your looks, your pretty face, and don't underestimate the importance of body language." I mean, admit it. I Even if you had to leave off the following verse, I she could easily pull that off. I mean, if you could have her pull off shaking her upper body towards the camera, I then you could easily have her pull off I don't underestimate the importance of body language and make it seem awesome. Otherwise, I have little to no complaints about Poor Unfortunate Souls and the fact that it was kept.
As for the character herself, well, I find her to be as menacing and threatening compared to her animated counterpart. Plus, she's cold, witty, clever, and she has a decent sense of humor. Also, there are a few things that make her pretty different from her 1989 animated version. However, I think I should let Bonnie explain.
One of the changes they made to her character arc is not just that she and Triton are siblings, which was in the original storytelling, but they left it out only to bring it back into Broadway, only to now bring it here again, which kudos for that. But just the fact that she doesn't just steal souls from merfolk, she actually kills them. Yeah, there's I mean, it actually shows Ariel swimming over piles of skulls while getting across the field of polypi just to get to her place. And then it also shows in the Poor Unfortunate Soul song her holding a skull when saying, "And I had to rake them across the coals." I so yeah, it shows that Ariel's not just dealing with somebody who could maybe take her soul and more. No, this is somebody who could potentially kill her if she fails this task. And on the one hand, that makes her, and that really makes her all the more terrifying. If that was included in the animated film, I think that Ursula would be even more scary. But, well, obviously Disney was not going to do that.
Also to note, during Ariel's human transformation, not only does she take Ariel's voice, but she also casts a memory spell so that Ariel won't remember that she only has 3 days to get a true love's kiss from Eric, which I find was a bit unnecessary. I should also point out that when I came across this book at Barnes & Noble's weeks ago, I discovered that Ursula was implied to have been indirectly involved with Queen Athena's death. Also, I think Jessica Alexander's performance as Vanessa is really mesmerizing, manipulative, and seductive, especially during the scene where she was being spied on by Scuttle in the bedroom.
My gosh. I mean, everybody on the internet actually keeps talking about how underappreciated her performance is, and yeah, they're right. They're all right. I The only criticism I ever had about this one is, does Vanessa have three voices? I mean, she's got Hallie's singing voice, she's got Melissa McCarthy's voice, and there are some moments where she speaks on her own. How many voices does Vanessa have? Hey, did she steal another voice? Put in your fan theories. Put in your fan theories. So, yeah. I mean, for what Jessica Alexander has to do, most of the time she's lip syncing Melissa and Hallie at certain moments, and she does phenomenal with it. I mean, the moments where she's laughing wickedly, it looks like it's actually coming out of her. And the moments where she's singing, it also looks like it's coming out of her. And on top of that, the moment where Ariel turns back into a mermaid, the look that she gives, that a evil smile she gives, is actually pretty haunting, including that wicked laugh and a yelling, "You're too late." May not be as scary as when it was in the animated movie, but that wicked smile sells it. I hope Jessica Alexander gets to do more projects after this, because she's amazing.
And I thought the cat fight between her and Ariel was amazing and humorous, and I clapped when Ariel destroyed the necklace containing her voice. As for the final climax, well, it's okay. Just not as intense as the animated version.
And I'm sorry to say, I'm not a huge fan of the big epic fight scene that they have. Mainly because, well, the effects are pretty bad on Ursula. I've seen worse effects, but they still don't look good. And, she doesn't look as scary as the original. And that's always going to be the case. But like, there's little to no lighting to show what she's like. It feels more like a cover for bad CGI. But for the most part, I it is. I mean, Hallie and Jonah do find a way to make it intense, and I do like that. However, I don't like that they made Prince Eric useless in that fight, because I get that you want to empower women, and I do like girl power. I do like it, but I don't like it when it feels phoned in. And Ariel steering the ship into Ursula did not feel. I like that felt out of nowhere, because she never learned how to steer a ship. If Eric taught her how to do that, that make more sense. Or if they both did it together, that actually might make an epic climax. But since it's just her, it kind of feels like, in a way, that the movie jumped the shark. But I do like the idea of her taking down Ursula and taking down the source of her troubles.
Plus, like in the animated film, resurrecting shipwrecks during this scene was Ursula's biggest mistake ever. And no offense, Bonnie, but I still applaud Ariel for fighting her aunt. Kind of like Anya fighting Rasputin, Giselle facing Nerissa, or Kyrie fighting Master Xehanort. As for the other characters, we have Sir Grimsby, played by Art Malik. Like in the original film, Grimsby is Eric's prime minister and loyal confidant. And to me, while he can be a bit no-nonsense and strict at times, I still think he makes a great father figure for Eric. Plus, he makes a decent supporting character, like when he notices the attraction between Ariel and Eric, and he, along with Lashana, the castle housekeeper, help to support the relationship, where he secretly fetches a carriage for Eric despite the Queen's order to have him remain in the castle, and where he kicks away the family engagement ring. Last but not least, we have Eric's adoptive mother, Queen Selena, played by Noma Dumans-Weenie, whom was previously in The Kid Who Would Be King and Mary Poppins Returns. Queen Selena is pretty much the only new character in this version, and in my opinion, I find her to be a pretty interesting character, due to neither her nor her husband being featured in the original movie. Plus, like King Triton, Selena is very protective of her son, and she does not approve of him going on sea voyages, fearing that she could lose him just like when she lost her husband. But at the same time, she does care about Eric and his well-being, though her overprotectiveness puts a strain on her relationship with him. And now on to our final words. Overall, the 2023 Little Mermaid live-action remake has got to be one of the absolute best that Disney has ever made so far. Sure, it may have a few flaws, like a couple plot points, a few visual effects, and a little bit of the character designs being a bit off, but still, the story is very romantic, fun, and emotional. The underwater scenery is breathtaking, the cinematography is well done, and I really love that it was shot in Sardinia, Italy. Also, most of the acting was very well done, from the live actors to the voice actors, and the classic songs are timeless and nostalgic, while the new ones have a nice charm to them. And I think they make a great dedication to the late Howard Ashman. Plus, I think Alan Menken and Lin-Manuel Miranda make a great songwriting team together.
For me personally, this was a remake I had been waiting for out of guilty pleasure, and it truly paid off, and it's gorgeous. I think that a few effects could have been tweaked to look better, like Flounder, and, well, I still think that if Ariel and Eric defeated Ursula together, it would have been epic, and maybe more time given to Ariel's sisters alongside Ariel. But otherwise, I think this is a really good film. It develops the right things that the animated movie forgot, and it leaves out some of the flaws of the animated movie, though occasionally amplifies other flaws. But otherwise, this is a really good remake, and I can't say that I put it right next to a Jungle Book as the best remake. Because so far I've got Jungle Book, then Christopher Robin, but I would put it next to Aladdin as one of the best remakes. They do a phenomenal job. They do what Aladdin did, is make the location wonderful. I focus on the right things, develop a few things better to create a new experience while keeping the old experience also.
So together, we give this film a rating of 85% out of 100. Well, that's all for now. I'd like to thank Bonnie Joy O'Connor for joining me today on this video.
Thank you for having me tag along, Joshua. This was actually a lot of fun, and I hope we could do something like this again.
Me too, Bonnie. As for all of you at home, be sure to join me for my next blog, Mustang Power.
That stupid little nag. Him and that Pennsylvania girl praising that blasted Disney remake. He's more persistent than I thought. Well, at this rate, my virus will be dead for sure. Well, it's time the COVID welder took matters into his own germ hands. The Mustang Prince will be accused as a monster and as a traitor by his peers, and then I'll make him writhe. I'll see him beg for mercy like a worm on a hook.